Greetings and bienvenue, MITZU. Thank you for returning to this broadcast, and welcome to new viewers joining us for the first time. If you like a video, then feel free to subscribe.
Good afternoon, X. I grew up in New England living in a haunted house, semi-related. People always questioned it until they stayed over and realized odd things would happen. After my dad died, we sold the house and now someone else lives there. I hope they have a better time with it. When I was a child, I remember being scared of the hallway my room was in. I had fasted weapons and remembered attacking the air. I used to cry. I couldn't sleep due to the light coming out of the door appearing on the wall in my childhood room before I took my older brother's room. I quickly moved to my older brother's room when he left for college. We moved to Florida when I was 8 as my dad's work took him down there and lived there until I was 12. When we moved back, nothing really happened, until we were visiting Florida when I was 16 for Christmas and the pipes burst as the house lost power during a really bad blizzard. We were out of the house 8 months as the property was cleaned and parts completely rebuilt from the studs. It was after that time that it got really bad and stayed that way. I never thought of the pre-move to Florida stuff until after we moved back in. It was August, a few weeks before we had to go back to school. We had lived out of a hotel room for the past 8 months. Once we got the all clear, my mom, younger brother, and I decided to camp out at the newly finished house. We had no furniture yet, as it was all destroyed. That night, I remember having a sleeping bag in my Read One room. At first, the crickets' frogs outside felt so loud despite being indoors. My brother woke me up and told me he couldn't sleep. Then we started hearing walking about on the upstairs floor where my mom was. We figured she couldn't sleep too, so we went to check, but my mom was asleep in the living room. Oh, wait, was someone in the house? We wake her up to let her know. She listens, no more footsteps. Anon, stop being scared, go back to bed. Younger bro Anon, set up your bag in his room. Nothing happens after. Then it got worse. Come home from school a few weeks later. Mom is freaked out. Ask what's going on. Earlier that day, the curtain guy came by to install window treatments. During the install, he interrupts my mom to ask, "Do you have a dog upstairs?" She answers, "No." Asks why. The guy says he hears running around and banging. They go to the living room where he was drilling. All of a sudden, there's a thrashing. Guy says, "Going to lunch," and just leaves. Service called to notify someone would be back another day to finish installing. We joke that maybe a ghost is upstairs, then we hear what sounds like something big falling onto the floor. We ran upstairs to my parents' bedroom. My dad's work shoes are in the middle of the floor. He is ex-military. He was one of the neatest people I ever knew. We wonder, did they maybe fall from something? But there's nothing to fall from, and he always stores his shoes on a shoe tree in the closet. At that moment, we hear what sounds like glass clinking. Think 2 wine glasses, cheers, in his office. We go inside. It's ice cold in there, despite it being early September. We both went early to get my brother from school. What followed for the few years of high school I had left were similar situations. Often my brother and I would hear walking and running upstairs. You could hear people talking despite us living in an isolated cul-de-sac in a forested area. Things would just go missing, with them reappearing days later right out in the open. Like I would drop a pen and it would roll under my desk. I would look, and nothing there, only for it to show up on the kitchen table a week later. The house doors would also lock themselves. We lived in a low crime area, so we never locked the doors. Yet sometimes we would come home to find the doors and windows all locked. I would often have to wait for my mom to come home if I left my keys inside. Some really bad moments included. One time my brother and I were in the basement. It was the type where half of it faced the ground due to the house being built on a slope. We would often see things walk by the windows one night, while my parents were out and I was babysitting my brother and his friend. We heard people screaming upstairs like they were arguing with each other. When we went up there, again cold as ice and deathly quiet. When we went back downstairs, we heard a door slam. The house was new too, built in the 1960s. We found out the entire area used to be a farmstead in the 1600s, before being abandoned and only resettled in the early 1900s. I moved to Miami for school. Far away from there, and lived there for 6 years. My parents and brothers would occasionally bring up more happenings of the like, including objects flying across the room, lights turning on when they were out, and strange smells like cigar smoke. No one in my family smoked. After I finished college, my parents divorced and my dad then contracted cancer. I moved in with my dad and my fiancée from Florida to help care for him in his final years, and that's when it got the worst. Some of the prior incidents that happened when I was at school would happen when my parents fought, and my dad dying and divorced led to more negativity that egged it on. After we moved in, the above stuff continued to happen. My wife especially started to hate it as she felt I am always being watched, feeling all the time. It reminded me of when my friends would come over post pipes and report the same thing. Some more memorable moments include Christmas time one year. I was decorating the tree. Dad was upstairs, drunk, and listening to basketball on the TV. Wife mentioned that I should check on him. He was in bad shape at that point. I go to walk into the stairway area leading upstairs when she hears a loud bang. She finds me on the floor, knocked out, but nothing showing why. I woke up a moment, saying something about it being too dark, except the house had lights on, shouting. We would often hear the arguing noises I would hear when I was in high school. One night it was so bad it woke us up. My dad was over at his girlfriend's house, but we didn't know. It sounded like two people in a vicious fight, bumping things and screaming. We go upstairs, everything is fine. We then hear running, downstairs. Something we would never hear, as that usually only happened upstairs. We go down there, all the televisions are on, it's 2 a.m. We both went and slept in the car for the night. Basement continued. The basement mentioned above was finished, so we had a home theater down there. I always liked the basement as the stuff had never happened down there, except seeing figures outside. One night we heard a commotion outside in the backyard, which goes about 20 acres back into heavy woods. It's winter, so usually the woods are incredibly still and quiet. We had friends over, including one who was an Eagle Scout. He points a campfire out in the trees. My wife has a bad feeling about this, so we decided to check it out in case it's a homeless guy out there. We had cell phones. We go out there and the fire disappears, we can't find it. My Eagle Scout friend is freaked out. We run through the snow back to the house, all the house lights are on and doors are locked. My dad was at a bar getting drunk. He died of alcoholism later, and my friend remarked this was why he hated going to my house, playing with the cat. We had a cat. My parents weren't big on pets when I was a kid, and I would often tease him. This included running my finger around on the floor to get his hunter mindset up. I would then hide treats for him. One day I was doing this in the living room and I was flung back into a wall. Wife was staring at me saying it looked like someone picked me up and threw me. Cat did not react. The corridor. Remember when I was a kid and was upset due to the light coming out of the door appearing on the wall in my childhood room. That room is now a library and office. My wife's grandma died that morning. She was crying badly in her room. After consoling her all night, I went into the office to try and wake up for the day, fall asleep in a chair. Wife wakes up, finds me asleep in the room, gets me a blanket and pillow as I am in an armchair. I awaken. Tell her, "Oh, your grandma is missing you, but she will see you when you go into the corridor." I refer to it as a hallway. She is freaked out as I appear to be out, but saying this, she asks, "What?" I respond, "She's in the corridor with Natalie. They want you to know it's okay." I find out later that Natalie was her childhood friend who died in an accident. She woke me up. I had no memory of this exchange. After my dad died, we had to sell the house as part of the estate. Strange things happened well after that, until the night we finished packing up everything for the new owners. A few nights after he died, my older sister was up to help us with the funeral. She slept on the floor next to my dad's bed. The next night she slept in the basement as I keep feeling someone pushing me, but didn't remember anything happening to her in the house when she was kid. The next day we all went out to dinner. We came back to the house lights all on and the doors all locked. My sister then remembers it happening before I was born, but only once. After that, my wife and I lived in the house for a few more months to get everything packed up while we searched for a buyer. Often we would at night hear my dad talking on the telephone, being able to pick out phrases and names. Tape recordings would just be silent. New noises started happening alongside the walking running, where it would sound like a wooden chair being skidded and pushed across the hardwood floors, which would always precede other noises and talking. My dad's car horn would honk sometimes out of nowhere. We thought it was maybe broken. The guy we sold it to owned a used car dealership, said he found nothing wrong with the horn. The final few days, clearing out the house were a nightmare, followed by a chorus-sounding noise from everywhere in the house. Sure, it could have been stress and feelings, etc., but both my wife and brother both heard it. After we put the final stuff away in the pod we had in the driveway and did a final check of all the empty rooms, we all got in the car to drive away for the last time, and a light was on in the house. We didn't go back in. I also haven't been in the house since. 10 years later, I have not experienced anything like what happened there. When I talk to people I knew in high school, everyone mentions, "Do you parents still own that haunted house?"
I'm not much for storytelling, and I don't have much to tell. Though you guys might have liked to hear this though. Be me. I just turned 18 and homeless. Long story short, siblings screwed me out of my inheritance, and I did not want to live under the same roof as them because of it. I spent a few weeks looking for somewhere to go in our relatively small city. I guess you could call it, have slept in poorly handmade shelters in a woods, and spent some time on benches. A shitty mall in town had just become abandoned due to lack of business around this time, and just about anyone young would go waddle through it. Pick-related is not the mall. I'm pretty sure more people were there to explore it abandoned than when it was open. I had decided that I was going to stay in the mall until I found somewhere better. The way I saw it was that it still had power and water, and nobody was using it. For a time I'd sleep there, use the bathrooms to wash as best as I could, and even managed to find a TV and VHS player still working there. I slept in a back office on a pile of clothes and watched whatever tapes were left in the stores. As mentioned before, people would often explore the place, occasionally tear things up because dumb teenage idiots. When this happened, I'd just try to hide away from them. Very rarely was I seen there. I just wanted to be left alone. During this time I got a job at McDonald's, so I wasn't always at the mall. I worked pretty much any time I could, often not getting off until late at night. One night after getting off work, I noticed a group of people, who looked like teens, in the mall. I kindly went away from them at another entrance. This became a routine with them. Just about every week they'd meet up at the mall late at night. Not sure what they were doing, and never saw them enough to care. After a few weeks of living there, the power and water were shut off. The mall is black anywhere that doesn't have skylights, dark enough to not even be able to see your hand in front of your face. Stay there because the roof is over my head. One night after my shift, I was tired, dealt with angry customers all day, and wanted to sleep. Lay down and trying to sleep. Can't sleep because the air felt wrong. Things just didn't feel right. Hear distant footsteps, pairs of them. Think it's the group of teens again, not sleeping because don't want to be found while asleep. Decide to watch them and wait to see them leave. Stalker mode engaged while tailing them. About 5 of them in total, all wearing hoodies over their heads, few of them carrying grocery bags. They go to an empty store that used to be the glow-in-the-dark mini golf course. There's already a guy in the room, wearing robes. Too dark and too far away to see their faces. They start pulling stuff out of the bags, candles, lighters, and other stuff I couldn't really see. They rub something on the ground, looked like a pentagram they set up, and light candles at the points of the pentagram. They all gather at the points. They all hold hands and the robe guy starts to chant. Not sure what language. As they chant and start feeling anxious. Not many things scare me, but cults legitimately terrify me. Decide that watching isn't worth it. Slowly get up and walk away as quietly as I can. Not sure if they heard me, but the chanting stops. Quicken my pace, turn my head to see one of them peeking. Freak out and sprint to exit. Some of them yelled, but I didn't hear any chase. Turn corner to the fire escape. Stop dead in my tracks and see a robed figure. His face looked like a goat, angry and snarling. His presence felt incorrect, like it was not supposed to exist. Peak-related is my best attempt at drawing it. The goat face doesn't speak. Nope, out and bolt to the front exit. Ran out and never went back to that mall.
Just a heads up, I consider this a story to do more with mental illness rather than the paranormal, but some of you may be able to shed more light on that. So here goes. Every word of this is true, and recalled to the best of my ability. B12. One day, Dad doesn't come home. Doesn't return until about a week later. Mom always tells me everything. Ask her where he was. Apparently, Grandpa died. I didn't really know him that well, and he was totally senile since I could remember but rip. He owned some land and property in the countryside. Dad was over there with his brother negotiating with lawyers over the inheritance. Didn't really believe her because he came back disturbed. Like really disturbed. Spent the next couple of months sleeping with the lights on and having hysterical fits, hours of non-stop crying. Figure it was just stress over a fight or something, since Dad didn't have the greatest relationship with my uncle or grandpa or anyone from his side of the family for that matter. Later overhear conversations and put it together that he got nothing out of the inheritance for some reason. I didn't think that was the whole story but kept it at that for 6 years. Dad became sort of distant and too much to deal with. We started to resent each other. Parents got divorced during that time. Still saw each other once every 2 weeks. Fast forward to my uncle dying. Go to his funeral. Dad isn't there. I find it strange, so I bring up the topic again to my mom. Press her about that night he didn't come back, but didn't think she'd even remember. Her eyes go wide and start to water. She tells me everything. Apparently, Dad was the last person they notified of the death. Uncle had already finished the funeral arrangements without him. He drives over there to attend. Everyone is sad and some of the relatives are angry. There wasn't an arrangement with their church because they're all Catholics. While everyone is leaving, my uncle and their cousin both stay behind. Dad spots them laying a handful of stones in a weird pattern over their dad's fresh grave. They told him to stay at Grandpa's house until they move his stuff out. He stays there for a couple of nights. Then on the third night he starts feeling strange, on edge. Nothing out of the ordinary happened, but he felt it in his gut that something wasn't right. Couldn't sleep in the guest room that night, so he goes to the bathroom. He passes Grandpa's bedroom, the one he died in. He sees his father laying there upright, pale as a corpse, eyes sunken into dark pits. Looked as though he was 10 years older than when he died. Muttering stuff and making odd hand gestures at my dad. This goes on for the span of time in which my dad gathers the wits to slam the door shut. Couldn't stay in the house, so he goes to a motel, gets a phone call the day after from my uncle. He'd been written off the will. He apologized and offered some measly compensation, out of my own pockets. Dad completely cut ties with him since. Had been going to psychiatrists on and off all this time. Knew that, but thought it was for stress-related disorders. They actually diagnosed everything from early dementia to schizophrenia. Mom suspects it might be heritable.
Here's mine. Best Bro's grandmother died recently, and his mother inherited her house. But since his family's house is bigger and nicer, she let him stay in dead grandma's house because it was closer to college. Be 19 years old, me. Piss drunk after partying really hard with Bro. Want to go home because I'm wasted as F. Bro says, hey Anon, why don't you crash at my place? It's a lot closer than yours. Best Bro ever. Sure, let's go. At a friend's place. Watching TV in the living room with Bro when suddenly, munchies. Went to the kitchen to get food. Bro goes to take a piss and leaves me alone in the kitchen. Making an awesome sandwich when I start hearing a sound coming from the hallway. Go to take a look. Humanoid silhouette at the end of the hallway. After a good 20 seconds, notice the silhouette is anatomically incorrect. Complexion way too thin. Arms and neck too long. Kinda like the mama ghost. WTF, man. The silhouette starts moving really slowly towards the kitchen. Oh shit. Yell Bro's name. Bro comes running. Silhouette vanishes like ghost, blink, no ghost. Tell Bro what happened. Bro goes to the room at the end of the hallway and starts screaming profanities to his dead grandma. Bro comes back and notices my WTF face. It's okay, Anon. It was just my grandma. She hated when unknown people came to her house, So now she's trying to scare you to leave, but I told her off. Doing a hell of a job trying to scare me. Didn't sleep that night and noped out of there as soon as the sun rises. Bro got a job in another city, so he sold the house, and the new owners called a priest to bless the house after some inexplicable events.
This one happened in Ohio, in an amusement park of all places, B20. I just inherited a sizable trust fund from Grandma that she put in my name when she died when I was like 4. Have to drive up to Maryland to collect it. I am in Tennessee, a 12-hour drive. My best friend offered to take us in his car. On the way, he says we can stay a night in Ohio and go to Kings Island to break up the trip into 2 6-hour increments. Hell yeah, bro. .jpg. Spend the day riding roller coasters like nut jobs. It's the middle of the week, so there's no one. We'll just ride the same one over and over without even leaving the seats. At some point, get hungry, spend too much money on overpriced carny food, and wander around the park eating and talking. Follow one walkway that leads off the beaten path to what looks like an unused area of the park. No one around here, middle of the day, but there's no one. And it's far enough away that most of the general buzz of human existence is lost. There's some kind of weird shack thing at the end of the path. The path is fenced and zigzags like a normal path does when it's meant to organize a line for a carnival attraction. The building has fake Halloween decorations all around it. Obviously, it's some kind of unused Halloween prop house or something. There's even a fake human torso sitting out in front of the entrance, which doesn't have a door. It's too dark to see inside. We're probably 100 feet from the end of the path when both of us stop dead at the exact same time and look at each other. The type of primal, "we are screwed if we don't go now," fear mentioned in that one Greentext where the dude shoots the escaped government chimera in the face is exactly what hit us both right then. Like if we got closer to that shed, some shit was gonna go down. The fake torso did not look fake anymore. You know that plastic kind of shiny look fake gore props have? Yeah, it didn't look like that. It looked like a dismembered torso. Either this park had access to some movie-level spooky props, which isn't unlikely since Kings Island isn't some backwoods podunk carnival, but the other decorations around the shack looked like standard dime store spooky shit. Or there was an actual mutilated corpse in front of us. Don't say shit. Turn around and bail back the way we came. Continue goofing around in the park for the rest of the day. Don't say shit to any of the carnies or anything because we're dumbasses, I guess. Go back to the hotel that evening. Have a 2-bedroom because no homo. Trying to sleep in preparation for the remaining 6-hour drive. Something thuds on the door. This was a motel, to clarify. The doors to the rooms opened up onto the balcony parking lot, depending on what floor you were on. We were on the ground floor. Sit up in bed, WTF thud again like someone is throwing shit at the door. Doesn't sound like knuckles, more like somebody chucked a softball. Get pissed. Open the door. Ain't shit. Shut the door, lock the door, go back to bed. Thud, not 2 minutes later. You goddamn serious .bat. Get up, rip open door, yell fuck off. Slam door, get back in bed. Thud, start thinking about the weird shit from earlier. Immediately get uneasy. Thud, they know we know and have come to add our desiccated corpses to that death shack. Thud, debate pulling out blade knuckles and confronting whatever it is. Coward out, stay in bed, no more thuds. Night passes without incident. As we leave the next morning, ask friend about thuds. He heard nothing as he sleeps like the dead, probably unrelated. But it was still eerie to think about some serial killer screwing with us for finding his corpse carnival.
I hope that you enjoyed tonight's broadcast. If you enjoyed tonight's story, then please subscribe to the channel as more green texts will appear daily. A new broadcast will appear when the clock strikes midnight Central Time.
Remember to check out the Odyssey page in the description for a second archive of the channel's videos.
There's also a Rumble archive as a backup.